Hey guys, how's it going? Ian here. Today I'd like to talk about the modern deck, Seance. Seance is a deck that is similar to Nick Fit deck that I previously reviewed, but it's a deck around graveyard value and outvaluing your opponent through recurring creatures. The shell of the deck is built around the Seance card. Originally a meme in the past, never widely considered good, Seance is an enchantment that costs 2 white, 4 total, that says at the beginning of each upkeep, you may exile target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and then exile it at the beginning of its next end step. The reason this card was not considered good in the past was because this card does not grant that token haste, which means the card that you exile from your graveyard, never to return, is not able to attack when it lands. So it was considered just a joke, a bulk rare, and for the most part it still is, but it actually makes a pretty fun deck to play. It's not tier 1 by any means, but I like to do it because I'm a filthy graveyard player. So obviously with a card like this, we want a deck that uses a lot of enters the battlefield effects. So, and obviously we want to fill our graveyard quickly. So starting at the low end, a card that achieves this very well is the Satyr Wayfinder. For 2 mana, you get a 1/1, and its ability is when Satyr Wayfinder enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. What this does is it lets you, obviously, fill your graveyard with other creatures, other value cards, while also giving you lands to help you actually hit 4 mana as fast as possible. The body of it is quite underwhelming, obviously, so this isn't the card you're going to use to win, but it will give you a body on the board that can block, chump block, and then sacrifice later, and then bring back with Seance if you need to continue engineering out your deck into your graveyard. You combine this with Commune with the Gods, a sorcery that reveals the top 5 cards of your library, and you would put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. So Commune with the Gods is typically used to hit Seance, as Seance is an enchantment that will stick around, and this lets you pull it out of the 5 that will go into this card while still filling your graveyard. An additional early game card is just Wall of Omens, and it's just a straightforward, enters the battlefield, draw a card value, and just a 0 for a wall to help lock down the board in case you're going against a more aggressive deck. We continue with the enter the battlefield value with Eternal Witness, one of the most important cards of this deck. For 3 mana, you get a 2/1, also not an amazing body, but when Eternal Witness enters the battlefield, you may return any card from your graveyard to your hand. Once you've been filling your graveyard with a lot of cards, Eternal Witness will return any of them to your hand, making this, in essence, a card that doesn't cost anything as it replaces itself in your hand with additional enters the battlefield value. Since we are playing a modern deck, we also pack a little bit of land hate. So if your opponent is playing Tron, or if your opponent is playing Scapeshift, or any sort of deck that uses non-basic lands, which is any deck in Modern, you can use Fulminator Mage to destroy their lands and then recur it back with either Seance, or of course Eternal Witness, or whatever else you may want. And if this is enough, it will keep your opponent just off kilter enough that they won't be able to advance their game plan. We also run Kitchen Finks because Kitchen Finks in Modern is one of the most value cards you can find. For 1 mana and 2 hybrid, 3 total, you get a 3/2 creature that when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. This is mostly incidental life gain. And it also has Persist, so when it dies, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter, which allows it to just stick around, making a great chump blocker. Or even if it's attacking, if your opponent doesn't have creatures out, you're just attacking for 3 every turn. In the 4-drop, we play Siege Rhino because Siege Rhino is one of the best cards to recur. It's also just one of the best mid-range cards in the game. Like I said in my previous video, pummeled forward by Wizards' move to make creatures better, we have a 4 mana 4/5 with Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, it drains your opponent for 3. Obviously, every time you recur this creature through Seance or Eternal Witness, and you drain your opponent for 3, this alone, even without attacking, could just finish out the game against your opponent. We also include Thragtusk, as it is another very highly valued creature. Every time it lands, it gains a not so incidental 5 life, and then when it leaves the battlefield, not just dies, just leaves the battlefield, you create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Thragtusk is really good with Seance, as exiling the token of Thragtusk at the end of your turn will still leave around a 3/3 beast token. We also include Shriekmaw, as this card is either used typically a 2 mana removal with upside. So this card, you can either pay 5 mana, which gives you a 3/2 creature with fear, or you may pay the evoke cost, which is you pay 1 in black, and when it enters the battlefield, you then immediately sacrifice. So whichever way you pay it, it still gets off its main ability, which is when Shriekmaw enters the battlefield, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. And so obviously recurring this with Seance or Eternal Witness or what have you will let you pick off your opponent's creatures and let any creatures you've already stuck just keep on swinging in for the win. Lastly, we play one of a fan favorite of not just me, but most Magic players, the Muldrifter, the Flying Fish. This card also has Evoke, so you can either pay 5 mana or you can pay the Evoke cost of 3. And its enter the battlefield effect is when Muldrifter enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. This is what lets you just dig through your deck like crazy trying to find the cards that you need. Those are the creatures that we play. And then there's a couple support spells that we also play just to try and hold the game up. We play Wrath of God as a complete board wipe. In a deck like this is not usually a bad thing. In fact, getting a Wrath of God off will clear the opponent's board, and then we will start rebuilding our board quickly as we Seance out Eternal Witnesses and just replay what was destroyed. We also play Parallel Lives as it is ridiculous in this deck. 4 mana, enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. Every Seance card is a token, so then you get double. Obviously getting double Thragtusk, double Siege Rhino, double Fulminator Mage will make your opponent hate themselves really quickly. Then in the low end, we also play Thoughtseize to try and keep our opponent off playing combo decks, or if they have cards, enchantment removal, anything that might disrupt us, we will get to them first. As 1 mana, choose a card from your opponent's hand and they discard it is very playable. And then lastly, we have the Path to Exile. 1 mana, instant, exile target creature. Its opponent puts a basic land from the library into play tapped. The land is a moderate upside for the opponent, as we're just looking for 1 mana removal for the most part. And then lastly, we have our land selection. We are majority white, green, black. Technically we have red, although since Fulminator Mage can just be paid with double black, we just pay it with double black. But then we do also have a hard requirement for blue. So we are a 3-color splash blue deck. So we include a couple of the shock lands. Shock lands being lands with basic land types that can be fetched, but that will cost you 2 life if you want them to enter untapped. We play some basics. We play more shock lands for blue. We play fetch lands to fetch the shock lands. Then we continue on. So we have some basics. We do play a single Stirring Wildwood, as man lands not only get around board clears, as if you're playing a Wrath of God, you're not going to animate your Stirring Wildwood. And this one in particular also hits flyers, which green as our main color tends to have an issue dealing with. Then we also play a Tectonic Edge for more non-basic land destruction. And we finish out with some more shock lands and some more fetch lands. In the sideboard of the deck, we are running, if we need to hit more creatures, we run another Path to Exile. We also run a Wrath of God if they're playing maybe a creature token generation deck. And then we also play Stony Silence, which shuts down the affinity decks or any artifact deck in the meta, as a 2-mana enchantment that says activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated, neuters artifact decks. We have another Shriekmaw if we need more recurring creature destruction, especially if they're not playing black. We are playing the new Fatal Push cards as a single black mana instant that says destroy a target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less, or if a creature left the battlefield 4 or less is just a very, very strong value card. We also play Surgical Extraction against combo decks or any decks that have a graveyard theme, as this card can be paid with either 1 black mana or 2 life, and it's an instant. We choose a target card in a graveyard other than a basic land card, search its owner's library, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as the card that we chose, and we exile them. Then they shuffle their library. So this allows us to instantly, if they're trying to reanimate something, in response to the reanimation spell, we cast this, exile what they're trying to reanimate, and we knock out all copies of that card. We include Reclamation Sage, as this is also an Enter the Battlefield effect card, which allows us to recur out destroying artifacts or enchantments should they become a pain. We have another Fulminator Mage in case we're going against one of the decks that use a lot of non-basic lands, especially as a win condition. We have another Kitchen Finks, as it's just a strong card. And lastly, we have a Sundering Growth that allows us to destroy an artifact or enchantment for 2 mana, and then we populate. Populate lets us make a token that's a copy of a creature token we already control, which lets us make another copy of a Seance token, and the benefit is that the Sundering Growth token does not sacrifice at the end of the turn. Unfortunately, the Parallel Lives token does sacrifice at the end of the turn. The reasoning for this is Parallel Lives takes whatever effect is generating tokens and has it generate twice as many, but then everything else of that effect still applies to those tokens, so the exile at the end of the turn still applies. Whereas Sundering Growth is a whole new effect, creating a token that is not subject to the previous effects stipulations. So as a whole, this deck is just trying to control a little bit of the early game, not die, and then slowly start beating out bigger and bigger creatures, copying creatures that you have already died, pulling cards back with Eternal Witness, trying to get not infinite loops, but just highly valued loops, and eventually beat them down with a Siege Rhino or Thrive Tusk. All in all, quite fun deck to play. Again, it's not the best, but it's still a really fun deck to get into understanding how triggers work, how to respond, what sort of creatures will create the best value, so on and so forth. I might play a couple games of this later on, and if I do, I will upload them. As usual, thanks for tuning in, and that's all for now.